Hi guys, Tuck the Duck 131 here, and with the resurgence of Milo's Holiday Cube, I've decided that I am going to show you guys my cube, which I just finished. This is a 270 card cube that is pretty budget. It's just, I made it so that I could draft with my friends while I piece together the bigger, more powerful cube that I'm building. So I'm gonna just show you guys the cards in it and kind of talk about some stuff. I'll split this up into multiple videos so that it's not too long. And we can start with white, I guess. Okay, so we'll start with the white 1-drops. We've got a couple of aggressive 1-drops in Elite Vanguard and Savannah Lions. They're just 2/1s for 1 white mana. Pretty standard aggressive cards, no downside. They're really good, really great in queue. And then we have Student of Warfare, which is another pretty aggressive card in cube. On turn 2, if you have double white, you just make him a 3/3 first strike guy. He's pretty good. He's definitely not as reliable as Elite Vanguard and Savannah Lions, but he's still pretty aggressive and probably the next best option. And then the last 1-drop is good old Mom, Mother of Runes. This card is super dumb. Mother of Runes is super great. If they need like 2 removal spells to answer her of different colors, and if not, then nothing dies. And you just got big unblockable guys. She's really versatile and she's great. Moving on to the 2-drop creatures. We have quite a few. We've got probably my favorite, a Quarter Paladin. He's a 3/1 for 2 with Battlecry, which pumps all your other attacking creatures when he attacks. Really great for token strategies or just aggressive strategies in general. Just a 3/1 for 2 is pretty good. With that added ability, it pushes him over the top, and he's very powerful. Of course, Skyfisher is a 2/3 flyer for 2 that enters the battlefield and bounces a permanent. So ideally, you would bounce something with an enter the battlefield ability. But it's not setting you back too far if you just bounce some creature or some permanent that you have, because a 2/3 flyer for 2 is pretty good. Pretty good stats, if you ask me. We've got a not so aggressive creature in Wall of Omens. Actually, the opposite of aggressive. It's a 0/4 for 2 with Defender that enters the battlefield and draws you a card, cantrips. The exact same card as Wall of Blossoms, which also appears in the cube. Good at stopping a lot of aggression, which is very good. It's very reliable. Another card that's good at stopping aggression is Lone Missionary, who is a 2/1 for 2 that enters the battlefield and gains you for life, so it's good at stopping mono red or another aggressive deck. Definitely a sideboard card, pretty underwhelming. Yeah. Then we've got Porcelain Legionnaire, who is definitely a 2-drop. You just pay the 2 life and you get a 3/1 first striker for 2 colorless, which is great, really good. And you can play this in any deck that's not. You can play this in any deck, and you definitely should in any aggressive deck. But the white mana symbol means that I have to put them in the white. Well, it doesn't force me to do anything, but it's white, so it needs to go in the white. Solitary Monk is a protection from black shadow 2/1 for double white. Shadow is essentially flying, just differently worded differently. So it can only be blocked by, I think, 1 other creature in my cube currently. And yep, pretty good. They can't kill him with any black removal, so he just kind of gets in there, keeps going. And then the last card in the 2-drop slot is Solitary Trooper, who is a 1/1 for 2 with Shadow that whenever he attacks, he gets +1/+1. So those are the 2-drops. We'll move on to the 3-drops. Here we go. 3-drops are pretty good. We've got Fiend Hunter, who enters the battlefield and exiles a creature until he leaves the battlefield. And then they get it back. I currently don't have Resto Angel in this cube, but if I did, you could bounce it to permanently exile because of the way that it's worded, stacking triggers and such. But either way, he's removal. He's a 3-mana 1/3, pretty good. Here's Flicker Wisp, a 3/1 flyer for 3. that enters the battlefield, and essentially it exiles another non-land permanent, or another permanent, I'm sorry, until the end step. So it's good at getting something out of the way immediately, or maybe giving you another end of the battlefield trigger. And it gives you a 3/1 flying body, which is never bad. Mirror Crusader is a 3-mana 2/2 with double strike and protection from green and from black. Really good card. Throw some equipment on him. Makes him even better. Black can't remove him, and green can't block him, is essentially what this reads. The double strike. With swords, he's very good. I don't currently have any swords in the cube, but you get all the sword triggers twice. And then Blade Splicer is the last 3-drop. The only 3-drop that's not double white. Enters the battlefield and gives you a 3/3 golem for 3 on a 1/1 body, so you get 4 power for 3 mana, and it gives that golem first strike. So as long as you've got the Blade Splicer as well, you've got a 3/3 first striking golem, which is very good. And you can again use maybe Flicker Wisp to bounce that Blade Splicer, or of course Skyfisher to bring it back to your hand and get that golem again. The 4-drop slot is quite smaller. We've got Core Sanctifiers, which is a 3-mana 2/3, but it's a 4-drop in the sense that it has Kicker for 1 white, and if it's kicked, it enters the battlefield, and you get a Naturalizer Disenchant effect. You destroy an artifact or an enchantment, and you would never just cast this for 3. You could, but it's primarily a sideboard card that you would side in against an artifact or an enchantment that's giving you a lot of trouble, and you would use that Kicker to destroy it. We've got Calciderm, which is Blastoderm, except in white. A little bit different wording, but it's essentially a 4-mana 5/5 with Shroud. So it can't be targeted by spells or abilities, and after 4 turns, it dies. If it's not already dead or you haven't already won the game. But it's still pretty reliable in that sense. And then Hero of Bladehold. This card is super good. It's a 3/4 for 4 with the Battlecry ability that we saw in a Quarter Paladin to pump your whole team. And whenever it attacks, you get 2 1/1s that are already attacking. So essentially, you're getting 2 2/1s that are attacking, and you're pumping your whole team, and that happens every time that you attack. So if your opponent's not dead after a couple of attacks, they deserve to win, essentially. For 5-drops, we've got Serra Angel, the poor man's Baneslayer Angel, I'd like to say, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. Flying in Vigilance for a 4/4. For 5. Serra Angel is always good. It's reliable. Serra Angel will never let you down, but there are better alternatives that cost just more money. And good old Cloudgoat Ranger. Cloudgoat Ranger is a 5-mana 3/3 that enters the battlefield with 3/1/1 white Kithkin. This is another card that bouncing is very beneficial, and you can tap 3 untapped Kithkin and give him +2/+0 and flying. Essentially, by tapping those Kithkin, he's going to hop on his Cloudgoat, and you're going to have a 5/3 flyer. If you were to bounce him again, you could tap your Kithkin yet again, and give him +2/+0 and flying again, which isn't relevant, but that's +2/+0 could be if you need to fly over and get some extra damage in. Very good card. At the 6-drop slot, we have good old Sun Titan, 6-mana 6/6 with Vigilance. And then whenever he attacks or enters the battlefield, you get a non-land permanent, or a permanent again, a permanent that costs 3 or less back onto the battlefield. So you can maybe get something that's died, or something that you've sacrificed, or just the possibilities are endless. As long as it costs 3 or less, you can get it with Sun Titan, and it gives you a 6/6 Vigilant body, which is always great. Titans are super good. Here's Angel of Serenity, a lot of times a reanimator target, or if you're just playing the control game. It's a 7-mana triple white 4 colors for a 5/6 flyer that enters the battlefield and exiles up to 3 permanents from graveyards or the battlefield, and then when it leaves, those permanents go back to their owner's hands. And I actually think that this is just creatures, not permanents. Great. Gideon Jura. This Gideon has a fun story behind it. I was at my local, and I was looking for a Gideon. I was flipping through, and I saw the Gideon, and I read his name. I read Planeswalker Gideon, and I said, awesome, Gideon. And then I got home, and I read his abilities, and I said, these are all in Spanish. And because Planeswalker and Gideon are a made-up word and a pronoun, they aren't translated to Spanish, but the words are, and I have some people who have no idea what Gideon does and don't speak Spanish, so I have to explain that to him every time. But essentially, he's a 5-mana Planeswalker, 6 loyalty, and you can use his +2 ability to make all creatures your opponents control attack Gideon if able on the next combat that they have. His -2 can destroy a tapped creature, and his 0 ability will make him a 6/6 indestructible creature until end of turn. He's still a Planeswalker, so he's very good in control. We'll move into some instants. We can talk about a little bit of spot removal-ish. We've got Path to Exile, which is a 1-mana exile spell. Exile a creature at instant speed, and they get basic land from their deck onto the battlefield tapped. Swords to Plowshares, which is better. You exile a creature, and they gain life equal to its power. The life ultimately probably won't matter, where the basic land could matter a lot more, especially in the early game. And then we've got 2 kind of removal spells. We've got Disenchant, which is more commonly known as Naturalize nowadays. It's just a 2-mana destroy an artifact or enchantment at instant speed. And then Mana Tithe, which is Force Spike, 1 white mana for an instant. Counter target spell unless controller pays 1, so a pretty good controller tempo card. We can move into some sorceries. Everybody loves sorceries, they're great. We've got some board wipes. We've got Day of Judgment, the poor man's Wrath of God. 4 mana, destroy all creatures. Easy as that. Just a reset button. Balance is something you have to work a little bit harder for. Basically, you make the lands, creatures, and cards in hand equal among opponents. So if I had 3 cards in my hand and my opponent had 5, they would have to discard 2 cards. If I had 2 lands on the battlefield and my opponent had 3, they would have to sacrifice a land. Let's say I had 2 guys on the battlefield and my opponent had 1, I'd have to sacrifice a card, all from balance. When played at the right situation, balance can be a huge swing. If you play it wrong, then you really can mess with you too. Armageddon, 4 mana, destroy all lands. If you're ahead, you got a bunch of creatures, just go ahead, blow up all their lands. They can't do anything to you anymore, and you just beat them down. The last sorcery that we have is Entreat the Angels. Entreat the Angels is a favorite of mine. It's XX, triple white, put X angels, 4/4 angels with flying onto the battlefield. But it has Miracle, so if it's the first card that you drew this turn, you can instead pay white, and X to do the same ability. What I like about Entreat the Angels is you always think like, oh man, I want 12 mana, I'm gonna get 10 angels, and I'm gonna swing for 40. But you really don't need that many angels. If you top deck this on turn 5 and you tap out and you make 3 angels, you're probably gonna win the game. Honestly, 3/4/4 flyers is really tough to deal with, unless your opponent has a ton of removal. They can't really do anything about it, and you're just swinging for 12 every turn. So it's a super powerful card, a great control finisher. We can move into some enchantments. There's quite a few of these. We've got good old Pacifism, just a enchanted guy. Can't attack or block. Classic. Not super great though. Journey to Nowhere is a 2-mana enchantment that basically does what Fiendslayer does. Exiles a creature until this leaves the battlefield, and then it's returned to the battlefield. Arrest is the same thing as Pacifism, except they also can't activate abilities, which is super good. Oblivion Ring is great. It's the Journey to Nowhere Fiendslayer ability, but for non-land permanents, which is super swell. Really good removal to just get rid of anything. And then Fate's Fetters, which is 4 mana. You enchant any permanent. They can't activate abilities of that permanent, and if it's a creature, it can't attack or block. But it enters the battlefield and it gains you 4 life, which is really great. So those are the white cards in my cube, and I will see you guys next time to talk about the blue cards.